Council of Monday, April 15th, 2024 shall come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Mark. Do we approve the agenda? Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. To the consent agenda, you have a copy of the minutes of April 1st, the regular meeting, and April 1st, the special meeting of 2024. We need approval of change order number 1 for 122 and 122.5 Beach Drive demo project with Navertil excavation for 126.5 and 141 Beach Drive in the amount of $32,086. We need approval of a private well agreement with Donna Munson of 2512 South Shore Drive for a non-potable well for landscape and irrigation purposes only. We need approval of bills and claims. We have the following licenses and permits: tree trimmers license, Arbor Experts, that's a renewal. Solid waste hauler license, Thompson Sanitation, that's a renewal. Cigarette permits, Casey's 1896 and 1427. And Lake Liquors, Wine and Spirits, those are renewals. Street closing requests, Clear Lake Chamber, Splash and Dash, and Try Clear Lake on May 24th and May 25th. And also, again, the Clear Lake Chamber, Thursday is on Main, May 30th through August 15th, excluding July 4th. Motion, please.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Beth Ann, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now is the time and place for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on any issue or item that is not on the agenda. Please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter it in the minutes. This is not a question and answer time, nor is it a discussion time, and you shall have 3 to 5 minutes. And appearing, we'll move along to unfinished business, of which we have 5A, Surf District Destination Iowa Creative Placemaking, Music Enrichment, and Immersive Center Project. And we need a motion to take Resolution 2434, a resolution authorizing execution of a guaranteed maximum price construction GMP agreement for the Music Enrichment Center project, off the table. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Beth Ann, seconded by Bennett, that we take Resolution 2434 off the table. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Creighton?
Yes.
Beth Ann?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Dana?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And now I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2434, a resolution authorizing execution of a guaranteed maximum price construction GMP agreement for the Music Enrichment Center project. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Creighton, seconded by Beth Ann, that we approve Resolution 2434. Is there any discussion?
I just add a couple quick notes, Your Honor, if I may. Just want to indicate that the start date is for April 17th of this year, as you'll note in the contract documents, and that the completion date is June 16th of 2025. And as you stated, this is through the construction manager at risk process, so there is a guaranteed maximum price contract in place here, and that is for the sum of $5,004,416.70 for the MEIC project. And I just want to give a shout out to our construction manager, Dean Snyder Construction, for their work on this project. It was, as you know from the last meeting, a very robust process in terms of the number of trade packages that we had. It required a little more extensive investigation into some of those, but you've got the GMP contract here before you, and all of the trade package contractors have been kind of vetted, I guess, for lack of a better word, and just kind of double check their numbers and understand the scope of the work that they'd be involved in. So again, we're ready to proceed with this GMP contract.
Thank you. Any further? Roll call. Creighton?
Yes.
Beth Ann?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2434 is duly adopted. B, Surf District Destination Iowa Creative Placemaking Streetscape Project, review of change order number 1. Scott Flory, City Administrator, and Matt Stedding, Engineer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. So this is the yellow sheet here in your packet addressing this item. As you recall from earlier meetings, the council was anticipating a change order for this project when the project was bid. Was bid at the original contract sum, $4,284,533.24. So that was significantly over what our budgeted amount for the project was. So the contractor, the consultants, our city staff, and I all went to work kind of identifying areas that we could make some changes. And you'll notice part of the change would be a change out of a couple of subcontractors related to the electrical work on the project, as well as the fabrication of the North Gateway Arch, changing out those subcontractors. So additionally, there were approximately 32 masonry piers that were going to be built as part of the streetscape project. So we've scaled those back now down to around 20, I believe. So the numbers, and we're still actually working through some numbers, so we're anticipating a second change order to come back, hopefully at the next meeting, that will actually identify a few more, we hope, cuts to that scope of the work as well. So the revised change, the revised contract amount you have here before you through change order number 1 would be for a reduction, and it would be changing the contract down from the original amount from $4,284,533.24. We'll reduce that by $738,230.62 through this particular change order. And I'm not going through all the items that were taken out, but like the overlay and some of the things that were kind of givens that we had talked about previously. So this takes it down to $3,546,302.62. And you can see on the back page kind of some of the bold area there, some of the things that were changed here to get to those. We had some quantity adjustments, in particular, like some of the pavers for the crosswalks, and reduce some sub-drain pipe material, storm sewer intakes, those kinds of things. So collectively, again, that all added up to that amount of the change order. So I don't have anything further on that change order unless anybody has any questions.
Questions or comments for
Oh,
Scott?
Matt wanted to add?
Yes, Mayor, I would just like to quick comment. First of all, I want to just thank you and Matt and anyone else who was involved. I know you've done a great deal of work on this, Scott, to, with the contractor to get this down. And I think it's just amazing how much you have worked on that to get that down. So I just want to say thank you to you and the team. It's just fantastic.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I would think the entire council would feel the
Absolutely.
same manner.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? Matt? would you like-
Thank you, Council. I don't have anything to add farther to that. As usual, I spent 45 minutes doing that same speech before I came here, and then Scott took it from me, but someday I'll get him. But no, I think, we spent a lot of work trying to get these numbers down to a reasonable level, and we're sitting around 7.5% over our original 3.3 budgeted amount. So I think we're in real good shape, and as Scott stated, the next items that are going to come off of this are all going to be deducts. So we're going to be sitting good on this project. So real happy with the progress.
Thanks, appreciate that. Any comments, questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt. Therefore, where am I? B here. Therefore, I entertain a motion with regard to change order number 1, in which the contract sum will be decreased in the amount of $738,230.62, which will leave the new contract sum at $3,546,302.62. I get that right, Scott? You did. Okay, great. Entertain a motion to approve that which we now call change order 1.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by, where am I? Bennett, seconded by Creighton, that we approve change order number 1 with regard to Surf District Destination Iowa Creative Placemaking Streetscape Project. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. To number 6, new business, fiscal year 24 amended and fiscal year 25 proposed municipal budget. Intro, once again, welcome, Scott.
Mayor, Council, so we'll have the budget presentation here this evening. If you recall back a little ways here at the February 19th council meeting, that's the meeting at which you established the date for the public hearing on the proposed property tax levy. And at that meeting, we established April 1st, 5:15 for the special meeting of the City Council, or again, that was a standalone item on the agenda pursuant to House File 718, where we held that public hearing on the proposed property tax rate levy for fiscal year 25. So we concluded that hearing, and also then on April 1st, following that special meeting, at the regular meeting, the council set the date for the hearing for the fiscal year 25 proposed and fiscal year 24 amended budget at that subsequent council meeting. So that is this evening here, 5:30, April 15th, and notice of that public hearing was published in the newspaper on April 4th of the budget. So just as a reminder again, the proposed tax rate for fiscal year 25, which of course begins July 1, and then ends June 30th of 2025, is set to go from $965 to $985 per thousand of taxable valuation. For fiscal year 25, again, the positive trends of growth in the community have continued. So for fiscal year 25, we're at $808,011,653 for taxable valuation, and that's an 8.54% increase from fiscal year 24. And again, all of that despite a historic drop in the property tax rollback. Of course, we have rollback now on commercial, industrial, multifamily, and residential, of course, dropped from 54.65 to 46.34, largest drop in the residential rollback ever. So. And Jacob will cover a few of these, so I'll leave a little bit here for him to cover in terms of what the overall budget reflects in terms of expenditures and programs and capital items, et cetera. Did want to talk just a moment about the debt limit, and Jacob, we do have a slide in there on that, but for fiscal year 25, our constitutional debt limit allowance will increase to $84.7 million, and effective June 30th of 2024, we'll have only used 4.9% of that. So just a little over $4.1 million. So as I mentioned repeatedly, kind of the standard where most cities kind of hover in is that 65 to 70%. I actually looking at another community, Dubuque, and they had taken a look for fiscal year 25 at the 15 largest cities in the state, and they were sitting in the 4th position at about 41% among the 11 largest cities in the state. So they were 4th at 41%. So that's really pretty good to be at, 41%. To give you an idea, Des Moines was about 68%, West Des Moines was about 66%. Believe it or not, Iowa City was kind of down towards the bottom. I think they were in 2nd place, and Council Bluffs, I think, is the only casino community in that list of the top 11 largest. They were the lowest, and I think they were at about 15%. So they have a lot of revenue coming in from the casino. So again, to have a debt limit of less than 5%, simply unheard of. So In terms of the schedule, as I mentioned, tonight we'll conduct the public hearing, adopt the fiscal year '24 amended, fiscal year '25, and then one of the changes of House File 718 was we used to have this done, have to have it done by the end of March. Now we have until the end of April. So once we're done here, probably a week or so, and Jacob then will certify the county, to the county, our fiscal year '24 amended, fiscal year '25 proposed budget. So again, Jacob's got about 7, 8, 9 slides that he's going to run through with the group here, but I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
You may have said this, Scott, but
Yeah.
that rollback for '25, fiscal '25, being 46.34 as compared to fiscal '24 at 54.65 had an effect, I assume, that as well. Yeah.
Yep, correct. Yep, and Jacob's got a number of things in the slide that we'll run through on House File 718 and kind of some of those impacts.
Thank you. Anything further for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Mr. Whitman, welcome, Jacob.
Here in council. So as Scott mentioned, we'll be going through just a little slide presentation on the budget here tonight. A lot of work's been put into this budget over the last number of months. I think we started it way back in November. And so just a lot of input from department heads and council and the public, and just excited to finally be here tonight and be wrapping this year's up. And there was a lot of challenges with this year's, and we'll kind of go through that as we go through it. But I think we ended up with a really good product here. So to start off the presentation, we're going to kind of talk some about House File 718. I know we've mentioned it a few times, but I just want to go into a little bit of detail with you guys on some of the changes that it made to the budget process and to the levies now. So one of the big changes with House File 718 was it took our general fund levy, which was always at an 810 limit, and it combined a whole bunch of smaller levies into that general fund levy, and now they call it the consolidated general fund levy. And so even though they consolidated all those smaller levies in there, they still kept it at the 810 limit, and there's actually additional limits on top of that that we'll learn in the next slide here. But for cities across Iowa, this could have a huge impact. For us, we didn't use any of those other levies that are mentioned there, so it didn't have as big of an impact on us. But like I said, there's definitely a lot of other cities across Iowa. Coming from Lamar's, we had 2 of those other levies that we utilized there. So it's pretty rare across the state that you wouldn't utilize any of those other levies. That emergency levy there, which was an additional 27 cents per thousand. I think pretty much every city in the state uses that. So just another thing of where we were in a good financial position to handle what the state threw at us this year. So really thankful for that.
Add one to that. Another one is that municipal band levy. You know, for all the towns that have a municipal band, it was very common that they would utilize that additional levy because they were already at the 810. But you know, we have a municipal band, but we were not at the 810, so we were not using that levy. So within kind of the field, people were talking, okay, well, you know, we have this limitation now. How are you going to fund your band? So that was just, as Jacob's pointing out, many cities used a lot of those. In Mason City, for example, they utilized the transit levy. I think they also used the band levy and the emergency levy and a variety of the others. So those were all taken away and put in under this umbrella called the Consolidated General Fund Levy.
So along with that, they did put certain growth limitations on that consolidated general fund levy. So it's kind of based on your city's growth rate. So if you had a growth rate that's less than 3%, then you're allowed to leave your levy rate where it was at. So we were at 7.399. So if we would have had a growth less than 3%, which obviously you want growth bigger than that, then we could have kept our rate steady. they didn't even allow those cities that were at less than 3%, say you were less than the 810, you couldn't go up to the 810 anymore. You had to stay where you were at. Then they had a 3 to 6% range, and they applied a 2% limiter on that. And then on an above 6% growth rate, which is where we fell, they put a 3% limiter on it. So for this budget year, we went down from 739 to 718, and I would project that to continue to go down in the upcoming years based on growth. We've seen good growth here the last number of years, and so if we continue to be above that 6% range here, that kind of gives you an idea of where we might be heading with our general fund levy. And that's a really important levy for the city. That's how we fund our police, fire, ambulance, all those general functions of the city. And so seeing that decrease each year does have some concern. We have strong reserves. I think we'll be able to withstand it pretty good, but I think sometimes they make changes down at the legislature and they don't really know how it's going to affect the cities in the long term. And this is one that we'll definitely need to be monitoring in the upcoming years.
Yep, and I think we discussed that last. I mentioned House File 718 is a profoundly impactful bill on property taxes. So the other thing I was going to mention is the growth rate of more than 6%. While that may seem like we're in rarefied air, we clearly are not. Literally every city in the state grew by that. I mean, there are obviously some exceptions. I mean, I think at the last budget hearing we had, of course, we're having two, and Jacob mentioned that. But I think I had indicated the Des Moines Register article, it indicated it's statewide, the average is in that 22% average. And, as reading Dubuque's budget, and they were north of 23%. And I don't think we hit that. I think we were lower than that. But, I realize some other towns in North Iowa, certainly don't offer the things that Clear Lake does. And so there may be some of these small communities that are not seeing that kind of growth. But if you're in a relevant community to Clear Lake, you're more than seeing that, above 3% growth. So I think overwhelmingly the majority of cities were above that 3%.
Okay.
Is there any talk on any sort of amendments to 718? I think there's a couple things there, even on that last slide, that don't make a lot of sense, right? When you look at FY29, I think the limit goes back up to $8.10. So reading through it and seeing all the changes, it really makes it look like what they're trying to do is get everybody down to 810. But if you're already there or below that, you're being hurt now for the next 5 or 6 years. So I don't know what we can do to assist that, but I was just curious if either of you have heard anything about.
No, but that's exactly correct. And that's, I think, goes back to it was mentioned about that Bettendorf meeting, and the council members there made the exact same statement. So for all these years, we've been really, good stewards and austere when it comes to spending, and we're basically being punished a little now for it. And everybody nodded their heads. Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, it was a tough one.
Yeah. I haven't heard of any proposed changes coming along. I would like to see that as well. But I think they were really working to get a property tax reform bill through, and this is what they came up with. And so hopefully they will make some tweaks in the upcoming years, but I'm not holding my breath on it either.
Okay, I won't either.
Okay, so two more things that came about through House File 718. For those property owners 65 years and older, there's a new homestead credit that they can apply for. So for fiscal year 25, it's $3,250, and then in fiscal year 26 and beyond, that jumps up to $6,500. And then the military exemption used to be a credit. They switched it to an exemption and bumped it up from 2002 to 4000. So once again, not necessarily bad things, but they are things that as a city we have to look at because they do reduce down our revenues. And then just some other things that 718 affected. I'm not really going to go into too many details on these. We did have to have that separate property tax levy hearing that we held last time we met, and then push the budget deadline back to the 30th here of April. It also had some stuff to do with bonds, and if you do have to go to a public referendum on those, you can only do them once a year now in November. With the general election, you can't have a separate election for those. There's some additional reporting requirements on that. They also did some stuff with property tax abatement agreements. And so there was a lot contained within the bill, a lot of changes.
And just to add on that topic of the property tax abatement, so we'll probably have a rush here between Emerald Edge, the apartment project, as well as the Emerald Edge Townhome project with tax abatement applications to beat that July 1st deadline, because as Jacob said, after July 1st, that is the school portion of that is taken away. So the developers will definitely want to have their applications in to us prior to July 1st, and then we forward them on to the county, and then the county approves them. So effectively, the abatement will start probably a year earlier than they would have preferred, but it's far better than losing, roughly about 40% of what that abatement would be over that 5-year period. So.
Yeah. So a lot of fundamental changes to it, a lot of things to navigate through this year. So just kind of glad to be through it, and I think in the upcoming years we'll also see how it continues to affect us. So then kind of jumping into the numbers of it, I'll try to go through some of it pretty quick here. So total budget, we're just over 25 million. Big chunk of that this year, 51% is towards capital, having to do with the surf district projects that bumped that up. I think for fiscal year 24, we were only at around 40%. So it bumped it up a good 10% or so. Here's some of the major projects. Obviously, surf district project's a big one. The band shell and Lakeview Room, that reno, and then just some other ones we have going on there. So then looking specifically at the general fund, once again, talked about this as our main operating fund for the city, where we pay police, fire out of, streets come out of here, library, just a lot of our general services we provide. So we're projecting revenues to be 11.5 million, expenditures we're looking at an 11.1, 11.2 million. So then leaving an ending cash balance of around 6.9. That does include our public safety reserve fund that we use for big public safety expenditures. And so that's got about 630,000 in it projected at the end of the fiscal year. So having those strong reserves could be very important upcoming with those changes in that consolidated general fund levy and that going down each year. So property tax rate then, something we can be very proud of here. As a city tax rate for this 103 cities with the top population of Iowa, we're the 4th lowest city tax rate. And this is from last year, so we'll have the New Year's coming up here pretty quick, but go into 985, that would still maintain us as the 4th lowest in the state. So just exceptional leadership we've had over the years here and being able to keep our rate low. Consolidated rate, once again, we're in the bottom tier. We're the 6th lowest here in Clear Lake. And so it's always good to be in that bottom half as opposed to the upper half, like you see Keokuk there at 51.25. It's much easier for the taxpayers here to be in that lower in the 29. So then looking at people here in town that pay their taxes, where do those go? As a city, we get almost 34% of them. 36% goes to the school and then 20% to the county. So those are your three biggest entities, taxing entities here in town, and providing the most services to the citizens here in town. So valuations, kind of like as Scott mentioned earlier, we've kind of had good growth here over the years, which says a lot for the city. It says we're heading in the right direction. So even with the rollbacks and everything, our taxable valuations have continued to grow. So for fiscal year 25, we increased by 8.54% in those taxable valuations. And that's even in spite of the rollback going from that 54.65 to 46.34. And that rollback, that there was a change there. I believe it was last year or the year before, where it used to just apply to residential property, and then they added the first 150K of commercial and industrial property to that. So for, I think the idea was for small businesses, that first 150 evaluation, instead of getting taxed at the 90% rollback, it's now taxed at the residential rollback rate.
I'd just add to that, Jacob, the one thing, so it was called like the state kind of labeled as like a business property tax credit, but you had to go and actually to the assessor's office and file for it. And despite all of the rhetoric that you hear about property taxes and so forth, very few businesses did it. So it had almost no impact whatsoever. So what the state did by this mechanism is just basically give them sort of an entitlement to it. So they didn't have to go to the assessor's office and file for it or anything. It was just an automatic applied because, again, almost no business. There were some that did it, but very, very few were taking advantage of it. So that was what that change was.
And the state did set aside a portion of funds to help backfill that into city budgets. The issue was they didn't set aside enough for it to maintain very long. So I think they were projecting it to last maybe 10 years. And I think we're like in the second or third year into it. And I think they're saying that it's going to be expended by the end of the 25 budget now. So it was nice to have that backfill, but it didn't last very long. Taxable valuations by class, residential, we're looking at about 74%, commercial and industrial, and then utilities. And I left it on there, multi-residential, that used to be its own category, and we'll see on our next slide here. Kind of, they rolled that back, and now it's just included in the residential rollback. So it used to be in the commercial industrial, I mean, it was its own category, but it was taxed at the commercial and industrial rollback, which was 90%. And then they started rolling that back. I believe it was in fiscal year 17 or 18 was the first year that it started rolling back into the residential. And now it is fully back into the residential. So they don't break it apart anymore, but as you can see on that graph, we've had growth in our multifamily category, but our taxes from it has gone down significantly because of that change a number of years ago. And over that period, it's caused over a $500,000 loss to the city from that change. Okay, another rollback that the state had backfilled that is going away. So the commercial industrial, so when they went from 100% valuations down to the 90% being taxable, they backfilled that. Then they started phasing that out in 23. And so we have we'll have fiscal year 26 where we'll receive a little bit from it. And then in fiscal year 27, we'll be done with that. But before they started to phase out, we were getting over 130,000 from that. And so that's something that will be completely gone here in a couple of years. So then our proposed tax rate that Scott mentioned earlier, 985. So that is up 20 cents per thousand from the fiscal year 24 tax rate. A lot of it having to do with those backfills going away, the rollbacks. So if you look at that graph there, kind of in the middle, I have what a this would be based on a $200,000 valuation. So for fiscal year '25, if you had a $200,000 valuation, your city portion of taxes would be about $1,025. Then I put that out based on growth. So let's say you had a 0% growth. So your valuation was 200,000 and it stayed at 200,000. You'd actually see like a $150 reduction in your property tax bill. So it's not until you reach 15% or higher that your tax bill will go up, and that kind of gives you a breakout based on the category of, you could look at your property and see, okay, how much did my valuation increase as a percentage, and that's roughly how much your tax bill might go up or might go down. Hotel motel receipts. Fiscal year '23, we had a great year for hotel motel. And then, so fiscal year '24 and '25, those receipts always kind of lag back a ways. So when we started the budget process, we had only received one quarterly receipt here in fiscal year '24. So we weren't really sure that we could go ahead and project based on the '23 figures. I will say we have received another quarter here in fiscal year '24, and so far we're trending higher than we were in '23. But we like to be conservative with our budgets, so we're budgeting $650,000 in revenues, but hoping that will come in higher, hopefully in the 700 plus range. Finally, debt capacity. So as Scott mentioned earlier, our debt capacity has continued to increase, but we've done a really good job keeping our borrowing under taps, and just we're at 4.9%, which is exceptionally low here. As our valuations have increased, you can do up to 5% of your assessed valuation, but we're at 4.1 for our debt, which is just exceptionally low, like Scott said. So just shows the good management we've had in the city here over the years. And with some of the changes upcoming, we might have to change how we structure things, because with that general fund levy going down, we might have to take on more debt just to be able to continue to do projects and keep things status quo, basically.
I'll just add on that. So yeah, you won't see that slide next year. It'll be double that or higher. Now, how that is paid is another question. So, but you will definitely see the slide change next year. It will not be a 5% slide next year, but probably more like 11%, which again will still be probably one of the lowest in the country. But it was just, we were so low that there are just no words for having that. Again, as they say with Dubuque at 40%, that's considered simply outstanding at 40%. So when you have 5, you either, you're just not doing enough. Yeah.
So that's all I have. I just want to thank you guys for your work with the budget this year, and just looking forward to implementing the budget in the upcoming months here. So any questions you guys have?
Jacob, on that, people who may want or need to know this, the homestead, except credit, we don't have to, those of us who are of age, don't have to apply for that annually, do we?
So so it's increased, so I'm not sure on that if you have to go and refile
Yeah.
because of the increase. I don't know on that.
I think you had to apply originally, but I don't think you have to apply each year.
Is the same for military as well?
I believe so. I believe it's a
All right.
one-time
Both of those.
application as long as you live at that place. I'm not 100% sure on that, but
Right.
I believe that's what I heard on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, normally, you file homestead once and you're done, never have to do it again, but I'm not 100% confident for those that are in that 65 and older group, I mean, which my parents are, and I counsel them, just go check. Just to make sure, because you don't want to miss out on it.
Yeah, definitely not,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's huge.
yeah, it's critical. Any other questions, comments, Jacob? Go ahead.
thank you for putting this together. Clearly, I know the work that goes into it, so appreciate you doing it and appreciate the presentation, and also to the department heads as well for the work that goes into it, and Scott as well. Obviously, there's a lot of changes as well that you all dealt with, so good job on that. Also, I'll take a bet on that hotel motel. I'm sure we'll far exceed where we were. And one of the reasons is the Fairfield and the economic impact that hotels do have.
Right.
Not just, of course, the positive property tax growth, but the hotel motel that will continue to drive in our community is a great reason for hotels. I'm a fan.
Yep, definitely.
Who owns Fairfield? Oh, no.
No comment.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
All right, now is the time and place for the public hearing with regard to the fiscal year amended and fiscal year 25 proposed municipal budget. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to make any comments or questions about that, please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter it in the minutes. Not appearing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So, second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Dana, that we close the public hearing in regard to fiscal 24 and fiscal 25 municipal budget. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. And now, entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2435, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 24 amended and fiscal year 25 proposed budget. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Creighton, seconded by Beth Ann, that we approve Resolution 2435. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Beth Ann.
Yes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
And Creighton.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, and Resolution 2435 is duly adopted. 6B, City Hall remodeling, administrative side and security accessibility improvement project update, review of pay estimate number 5, and change order number 3. Mr. Stedding, welcome again, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So here we go tonight, guys. If you flip to your blue sheets here, we're going to go through pay application number 5. Note that original contract sum to Hinkle Construction was in the amount of $828,100. We had that first change order of $1,554.95, which encompassed some changes in lighting into the conference room, is what that was for. So that brought our contract sum total to $829,654.95. So the total completed and stored to date is $239,993.50, less that standard 5% retained amount of $11,999.71, brings us to that total earned less retained of $227,993.79. So we'll go ahead and take out our previous payments of $184,183.36, which brings us to a total current payment due of $43,810.43, which leaves us with that balance to finish of $601,661.16. So there's kind of the breakdown of the numbers there. And just to note, if you look at kind of the itemized sheets on the next couple, you'll notice in there that 80% roughly of the items completed during this pay application had to do with framing, drywall, electrical, and HVAC systems. So that kind of encompasses the majority of costs this period. So just a little update here on the next 2 weeks, and actually previously. So the ductwork has all been completed, and the cassettes have all been hung in each of the offices, which the cassettes are actually a mini split type system that controls the cooling and the heating in every person's room there. So they get kind of a climate controlled atmosphere. And let's see, the line sets need to be connected up on the roof for those, which that can be done here in the next few weeks. All the plumbing has been roughed in to date. The masons were actually here today, and they were pointing in some brick for the windows that are going to go in. Eddie's is going to be getting the glass ready to set and install those windows in the next week. So all the sheetrock is currently hung, and in the next week and a half, they're gonna be focusing on the taping and mudding of everything. And then shortly after that, they're gonna have about a 2 to 3 day period, which they're gonna be painting the entire, all the rooms over there next door. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on right now, and everything's looking really good. If you wanna flip over the next couple sheets here to the gray sheet, you'll see this new change order number 3, so this wasn't included in this month's pay application, but it'll be in next month's. So this change order was in the amount of $7,596.97, and what we're getting for that amount of money is basically, everyone kind of got together and we're looking at currently we're not going to finish the vault room, which was just going to remain a block room, and it wasn't going to have any extra electrical, anything like that. And the printer that is currently, if you ever visit over to the temporary City Hall location, the printer is in another room, which the ladies have gotten quite fond of, not it being right next to them with papers constantly coming out all day long. So we got to looking at things, and we found out that we could actually make those measurements work in the new vault room. So we got everything kind of placed in there, and we thought, well, while we're getting the printer in there, we might as well get the tables in there and kind of make this a nice space instead of just leaving it an old standard block wall. So we got in there, and we were doing a little electrical to accommodate everything. We worked with IT to move some of the racks around so that we could get an actual drop ceiling in there so that it actually looks finished to the eye for anybody who goes in there. So it's just going to be a real nice space to do kind of all the paperwork and keep files, things like that. So that's what we're getting for that amount there. And I did speak with Ryan today, actually. I said, Ryan, I said, we got furniture coming in here May 20th, so hopefully you're gonna hit that deadline. I was expecting some kind of rise out of him, and he's like, oh yeah, I think we can accommodate that date. And I said, oh really? I said, well, I won't state it on record at council, so don't worry about that. But, no, everything's going really well, and we're really happy with the progress. I think everything's gonna land, according to schedule. So. Yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, that's all I got for this.
Questions for Matt?
Matt, I just have a quick question. Seems like there's still a lot of money left,
Yes, sir.
but there's
Good
so much,
observation.
so much already done. What's the biggest amount that's going to be paid out
So
in the future?
there's still a lot left on the HVAC portion and the electrical portion, and then some of that's been withheld for whatever reason, and we got some concrete work that's going to be done outside as well, and there's some additional things, but the majority of that amount you'll see mostly in the HVAC and electrical systems.
Thank you.
Anything else, Council? Thanks, Matt.
Yep. I guess I will add too, we got a lot of flooring and that sort of thing going in yet too, so.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve pay estimate number 5, which is $43,810.43, and change order number 3 at $7,596.97. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Creighton, seconded by Mark, that we approve pay estimate number 5 and change order number 3. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. 6C, 4th Avenue South Multimodal Corridor Planning Project Control, Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Becky wasn't able to make it tonight, so it'll just be myself and Matt here. This, of course, is our 4th Avenue South RAISE project. We received the grant for the 4th Avenue South Multimodal Corridor Planning Project. And I'll kind of refer you to the very end of the materials in your packet on this. And the one that says the RAISE grant funding, just as a reminder, this is a federal fiscal year funded project, so this all kind of begins September. But just as a reminder, there were 1,100 applications for this $15 billion in funding for this program through the U.S. Department of Transportation. Of those 1,100, again, just as a reminder, there were only 162 that were funded. So $15 billion in requests on the 1,100, and they funded 162 at $2.62 billion. So we were one of only 2 again, in the state of Iowa, Clear Lake and Cedar Falls were the only two cities in the entire state to receive funding from this program for that. So just looking back at the schedule, you'll see we're way off on that and not going to meet that for no reason that we could control whatsoever. But we were to have that project kickoff meeting in September, and where we would be at today would be actually going into design and field survey work. Just on the map in front of that, just a reminder where the project is, kind of the beginning and the end limits of where that project is. And then the yellow sheets in your packet are the contract that our consultant, SEH, has provided us. That has been reviewed and actually gone through a pre-audit and everything with the DOT for this project already. So again, mostly a lot of the stuff that we've had some delays on thus far related to consultant selection process. So you're working with both the state and the federal DOT on this, and everybody has to review everything. So it's a really slow process. So we have asked for, it's a separate process like everything. There's not one, you do one thing here and there's a separate process for something else, but we're going to be filing for an extension. If you recall, our completion date per the grant agreement was March of 2025. So we're going to request an extension on that to November 28th of 2025. But so when this is approved, when we approved the grant back here a while ago, we have to have the state approve that, then we had to have the federal government approve it, and it goes into their hands and it sits and sits and sits. And then we had to have the state transportation improvement plan. Nelson and I appeared at one of those meetings, got that done. I thought we were done with that, and then no, there's a regional and a federal plan that also have to be amended. So fortunately, we're able to work on those concurrently with what we're doing here. And then when we go through the selection process, again, highly overseen here. So we had to have our RFP reviewed at the state level, federal level, and then when we conducted our interviews we had the 3 responses to the RFP. So we interviewed 3 really good consultants for this project. The selection committee ultimately decided on SEH, and so we had to go through a whole process to demonstrate how we scored the applicants and whose scores were what, and then those had to be reviewed, and you finally get approval on that, and then you get a tentative agreement negotiated with the consultant, and then before you can sign anything, that has to be reviewed state and federally as well. Then by the time that's done, then they have to review the sub-consultants that are going to be part of this to make sure they're not on any sort of prohibited lists, which the sub-consultants for this project, our RDG is going to be one of the sub-consultants, and let me just tell you the name, I've forgotten. The name of the other one is Wapsie Valley. They'll be doing the archaeological work that has to be done. So this is a not-to-exceed $300,000 contract with SEH. Of that amount, $68,000 is budgeted for planning services with RDG, and $26,226 for archaeological work with Wapsie Valley. And again, there's certain disadvantaged and minority-owned business requirements that we have to go through on this to ensure that we're giving those folks an opportunity for this work as well, which these do have that. So a lot of regulation, but I'm happy to say we at least now have our consultant selected, and it's been reviewed extensively by the DOT and beyond, and so we're good to go. And so if we sign the agreement here tonight, we'll be able to start getting things queued up for the planning work on this project, and then again, ultimately, going to ask for a revision in our contract with the DOT that will extend that completion date from March to November. So we got a real shot at getting it done reasonably in this time frame. So,
Scott, how many across the nation requested?
there were 1,100 on this
1,100.
on this round. Yeah,
And only 162 funded?
Yep.
And only 2 in Iowa?
correct.
Wow.
No, it's a big deal. And so Cedar Falls is redoing their downtown. So we do hope that this ultimately sets the stage for a future application to the same program to do this actual work, which is kind of the model that Cedar Falls followed. So we're hoping that they like the project to begin with, and we go through the community engagement process and the design process. It'll be very informative, I think, for the community going through that. Have a lot of opportunities for public input throughout that. But hopefully we'll gear up for fiscal year 26, 27 for an application here.
US DOT.
Both US DOT and state. Yep.
Okay.
Money is federal, but it's administered through the state, so they both
right.
get a crack at you.
Wow. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody's got any other
Question?
questions.
Yeah, any other-
I'm kind of running along here, so.
No more questions on the process. I feel like I just went through it.
No kidding.
But it is, it's one of these projects, there's so much going on that it's easy to forget that this one's out there.
Yeah.
But it's such an important project when you look at welcoming people to our community and you get off the interstate there, and this is the first view you have of Clear Lake, so it's going to be an
Yep.
excellent project.
Absolutely.
Critical when you come into a town. It's got to have a positive impact on people. Thanks, Scott. Therefore, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2436, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with SCH Engineering for the 4th Avenue South Multimodal Corridor Planning Project not to exceed $300,000.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Beth Ann, seconded by Dana, that we approve Resolution 2436. Is there any discussion? Bennett?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Creighton?
Yes.
And Beth Ann?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2436 is duly adopted. 6D, 2024 Alley Improvement Project between North 8th and North 9th Streets and Main Avenue and First Avenue North. Once again, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll be really brief here. Matt can review the plans a little bit because we're running pretty long here. But first, gray sheet here in your packet is a resolution that sets the dates for the bid letting and hearing on this project. So we're establishing May 2nd at 11 o'clock as the date to receive bids on this alley improvement project that we've discussed several times already. And then you would conduct the public hearing on May 6th and then consider an award of contract at that same evening on May 6th. The green sheets to follow that are a copy of the notice of the public hearing that would be published in the newspaper. I think we're looking at like April 19th or somewhere, 25th for that. The next sheet are the pink sheet in your packet, that's just a quick schedule of what we're looking at having the work completed in this fiscal year, of course, by June 22nd. And Matt could talk a little more about the scope of the project. We kind of scaled it back from what we were originally talking about. We were talking about doing the entire east-west alley there, but because of the grade change that's so severe on the east side of the alley, the property owner on the south side has some plans to redo their garage, just not right now. So we've decided with a kind of a caucus among the parties out there that we would just hold off on that far eastern portion, get the grades established, so at the appropriate time down the road when they're ready to tear the existing garage down and build a new one, that their garage can match in to a future alley portion of the project at that point, so it doesn't get totally off on the grades there. So it has reduced the scope down, so the estimated cost now is, let me get my glasses on, that's $76,051.50 as opposed to what we were looking at earlier. Again, just because we're only doing about a little more than half the alley there. And then lastly in the sheets, just a copy of the plan sheets there for the project. So that's all I got.
Questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'll be real quick here. So like Scott said, we did cut the alley project back in scope due to the grades being very significant on that east end. We'll kind of start over here on the west end off of 8th. So we are going to be putting in a new approach there to the alley. The alley is going to be 16 feet wide is what we're going back in with. We had a lot of constraints in this alleyway because we have to match up to all the existing conditions that are currently out there. We met with Pritchard's on site. They control both the Lake Life property on the south as well as the retail space on the north. Jason actually had to end up putting a step there, if you'll notice on their plan sheet L.01 on that southwest corner of the retail building. It's outlined in red. That will be an actual step there to make sure that we can meet grades and make the sidewalk our 2% ADA compliant through there. Because right now, if you go look at it, it's just the driveway straight down through the sidewalk. So that's what's going on there. And the rest of it, it's an inverted alley, so all the drainage will go to the center. We are actually like I said, we met with Pritchard's out on site, and we're actually going to tie in a couple of their roof drains in with this project off of their retail space there. So that'll tie into our existing storm sewer, and it'll just make everything better right there as far as drainage goes. And if we keep going down, flip over to sheet L.03, you'll notice there, this is kind of that east end where we're not going to include in the scope. If you look at the blue highlighted area, you'll notice out to the east of the garage, you'll see an existing slope of 3%, and then you'll see the sidewalk, and then you'll see an existing slope of 19%. So that's where the difficulties come into play there and tying everything back off and making things ADA compliant. So due to holding off on the garage right now, we felt that it was best that we don't engage in increasing the scope out there because we don't really know what we're going to end up with in the future, and we don't want to tear out something that we just put in brand new. So that's the reasoning behind that. We are going to put in roughly 380 square yards of 6-inch PCC in the alley, which is the majority of the cost there. And we're going to end that alleyway just past Shane Munson's driveway, if you kind of know where his house is there. So that's just a visual reference. But that's the short and sweet of it. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer here.
So east of that retail, north and east of that retail, I do believe you're still talking about that steep.
That one we were that entryway going down in there, we are just tying the alley into that right now. So we're going to cut the paving back. We're going to tie the alley into it. They don't know what they're going to do right there yet for future development, but they are kicking around some ideas, so we don't want to go overboard in that area and redo drives or anything like that. So that could be a future project here.
Yeah, because if you know, whatever, winter or whatever, you
Yep,
slip
those are
over that,
definitely steep
you're
going
gonna
down
rip-
in there.
yeah,
You're
rip
100%
everything up.
correct.
Yeah, not good. All right, any further questions for Matt? Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Therefore, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2437, a resolution setting the date for a public hearing with regard to 2024 Alley Improvement Project, North 8th and North 9th Street and Main Avenue and 1st Avenue North for May 6th at 5:30 p.m. and a bid letting for May 2nd at 11 a.m. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Creighton, seconded by Mark. We approve Resolution 2437. Is there any discussion? Roll call, Dana.
Yes.
Mark. Yes. Creighton.
Yes.
Beth Ann.
Yes.
And Bennett.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 2437 is adopted. North Iowa Children's Museum feasibility study proposal. Interim, Mr. Florian.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The purple sheet in your packet is a letter of intent that was approved between the city and the North Iowa Children's Museum back in February of this year. And the blue sheets, there's quite a few of those that follow. The first part of that is a recommendation from the North Iowa Children's Museum 501c3 nonprofit recommending that we proceed with Consult Econ as the consultant for this project. And so I've included from their proposal most of their relevant pages, so quite a bit of work there. If you recall, again, back at our meeting there in February when we entered into that letter of intent, we had outlined the one topic relating here to the feasibility study, and the council had agreed to participate in an amount not to exceed $15,000 towards the cost of the completion of such a study. And in that agreement, the North Iowa Children's Museum had also agreed to participate up to a level not to exceed $25,000. Again, the LOI requires that both the North Iowa Children's Museum and the City Council approve the consultant. The city and North Iowa Children's Museum jointly issued a request for proposals. We did get 3 responses back to that RFP solicitation, and a committee comprised of representatives of the city and the North Iowa Children's Museum did meet and interview the 2 highest scoring firms here at the council chambers, did that on a Zoom call. And following the completion of the interview process, it was the committee's conclusion that the firm Consult Econ was the preferred consultant. And I just add that the North Iowa Children's Museum Board of Directors has approved that selection and is now requesting the council approve the selection of that consultant and our participation of not to exceed $15,000 for the consultant to perform the work here. So. Again, got a pretty extensive amount of materials in your packet related to the proposal itself, some of the background work that they've done, similar projects in other areas, as well as background on the person who would be the lead consultant for our project here. I just add that, as part of that group that met with this particular gentleman, and I was very impressed with his background and some of the work that he's done in other communities. So if the council should decide to pursue this, I think he'd be somebody we'd enjoy working with. I think he brings a lot of background and experience that we could probably learn from. So I don't have anything else unless anyone has any questions of me.
Questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Review request by Lorena, North Iowa Children's Museum. Getting late here. Welcome.
Good evening. Scott took the words right out of my mouth again, so I will just skip most of what I had prepared. He did a great job giving the background of what we're doing with this feasibility study and the process we went through to come up with our recommendation of hiring Consult Econ. Just a little bit of background about Consult Econ. This company really has extensive experience in the children's museum industry. They've completed over 30 assignments of children's museum, and they have extensive experience right here in the state of Iowa. So we were really impressed with that. Bob Ray, he's the vice president of Consult Econ. He would be the project's primary consultant. He's been with the company for 32 years, and we just really have the utmost confidence in this firm that they would be able to develop a meaningful feasibility study for the North Iowa Children's Museum, answering many of the questions that I know that this council has, including, facility, right size, site selection, attendance type, various performas. So this selection committee just has a lot of confidence in this firm to answer your questions. The total cost of the feasibility study, including all reimbursables, is not to exceed $40,000, and this falls within the budget of the letter of intent between City of Clear Lake and North Iowa Children's Museum. So, just like Scott said, I'd like to request that we move forward with hiring Consult Econ and conduct a feasibility study as stated in our LOI.
Council, any comments or questions for Lorena?
I was just going to add one quick thing here. The consultant, when we reviewed the proposals, they were the most costly firm of the 3, and I think Lorena did a nice job successfully negotiating that down and to fit within our budget parameters of not to exceed $40,000 total between the North Iowa Children's Museum and the city with 25 and 15. And as she mentioned, they do have experience with other Iowa projects and communities. And when we had the call, and I probably drug it on a little bit too long, but I was very interested in some of the work that they've done in other communities. The Figge Art Museum in Davenport's kind of one that I'm very interested in, and they did quite a bit of work on that. And one thing I thought was also impressive about them, they had done quite a bit of the work in Dubuque, and it's very similar to some of the conversations that we've had. They were involved in that riverfront redevelopment and the aquarium project and those things, and evidently did a good enough job that they asked them back for a second project and a second part of the development there. So again, I think, and then they had a number of other projects that they've done in Iowa as well.
And I would just like to thank you, Lorena, and the Children's Museum Board for the work that you've done. Of course, on all the project, but specifically on this, I know that this was a request from the council for a feasibility study to be completed. And it was probably a tougher request from your side because I know you've done some feasibility analysis, and also it's a large investment from your group, as we have the 40,000 in total. 25,000 of that is coming from your group, which I know you've spent a lot of effort raising those funds, and then the 15,000 coming from the city side. But really appreciate your professionalism and collaboration going into this project. And I was on the committee as well, and share the same thoughts that Scott shared and that you shared, that just lots of confidence in Consult Econ doing this feasibility study for us. Just very impressed. We had, I think both of the firms we had the pleasure of interviewing had something to offer, but Consult Econ aligned very well with what I think the council is looking for at this point, and not only that, but what will be help your project be successful in the future. So again, just thank you for all of the work that all of you have put forth here.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak to
Yes,
this?
certainly.
Thank you. So we've talked before, and you know, the concerns of mine in terms of this whole project is, can this work here? Okay, is it sustainable? Can we match your mission statement? Okay, which says, through the power of play, North Iowa Children's Museum strives to spark a love of learning, curiosity, exploration, and wonder. You know, can we make that happen? Which is the goal we have for this museum. Is it sustainable? You know, I think it's important that we look at this study and review the report, examine everything, see what kind of plans can be crafted. Museums provide an amazing pathway for learning and expanded learning. I know that. My family's always loved museums. I work at a museum, volunteer 20 hours a week at a museum. Whenever I took students to museums as a teacher, we spent time on battlefields. We went to U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. I had students doing things, and one of my most profound in the field moments was when I stood, not with you, but you were on the trip, Mr. Mayor, at Point du Hoc with my husband, looking down at where the Rangers came up on D-Day to take out the Germans, and just, you know, realized that point in history. Museums and actual places and being able to be in the moment and explore are so powerful. Things get started and have to be given a chance to grow. So I think it is important that this study is a key part in helping us to get involved, evaluate, study, and make sure it can happen. Is it sustainable? So I think it's important that we move forward on this. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to comment if I could. Thank you, Beth Ann, for your comments, and Creighton. I urged the Children's Museum and the City Council as a first step to consider a feasibility study, and that was agreed to by both parties in the letter of intent on February 2nd. Two of my fundamental concerns, however, were and remain the size and sustainability of this project. The selection of this firm, Consult Econ, to do a feasibility study has done nothing to lessen those concerns, even though I would acknowledge it has done some amazing projects, including here in Iowa. In reviewing their proposal, it is obvious that it typically does work for much, much larger clients with much larger populations, and I am simply unpersuaded that this firm is the right fit for the unique matters that would be presented here. In my humble opinion, the overall vision of this project remains just too aggressive for a community of 7,600 people in rural North Iowa. While I do appreciate the spirit of cooperation between the nonprofit and the city has already invested heavily in the Woodford property next to our current library. In light of that, our attention should be more directed there to develop a facility that would focus on providing interactive learning opportunities for kids in a new children's library and community center project that would be intergenerational rather than focus on a much more specialized children's museum concept that would be much more limited in its demographic appeal. Therefore, I just do not think it would be responsible at this time to move forward with this particular feasibility study. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Anyone else?
I'm just curious, you were able to, excuse me, negotiate the price some. Are we still going to get the same bang for the buck with what you negotiated with this firm?
What?
Yes, it's just, it'll be on me to arrange all the meetings.
Yep. So they're basically, as Lorena suggested, just some of the lifting got shifted a little bit more towards our, and so in terms of kind of scheduling meetings with, he'll want to speak with a number of people while he's in Clear Lake. This firm is in Massachusetts. So Lorena and the nonprofit will have to arrange for all of these, kind of the logistical things. So essentially, it's just taking some of those logistics off of his back and putting them on theirs.
At the beginning, I don't know when it was, Lorena, that you came into Scott's office many months ago, and
Go.
It's a lot of months.
I happened to be sitting there, and others of us here were there too, some of us. I was very lukewarm. I thought, where are we going with this? And but since that time, I have done my own research, and I think it's only an assumption that when we look and pull things out that we think that this is too small a town. I think we're missing the boat here. We do things in this town, and you have too, Lorena, through a committee, a citizens committee approach, which you have done, gathered, got officers, done your own research on this, much like we even did a certain amount, very little, but on that splash pad. That splash pad has been good for a variety of kids. The adults come with, and you say, what does that have to do with a children's museum? Well, there are children and there's adults, including maybe even grandpas and grandmas that go there as well. The pool years ago, when my kids were little, eons ago, they were trying to have bake sales to raise money for the pool. You know, that obviously didn't go. I can remember walking out of here with Dean and Joanne Snyder, and Dean said a few interesting words and said, this will never go with a bake sale. You know, you got to have something a little more than that. And I see the same thing here. This will be a time, and we need to approve this feasibility. So there's no way we cannot approve it. We ask for it, and we are going to put no more than $15,000 into that, and the Children's Museum Committee will fill in the rest. It is also very similar to the committee that went with the inclusive playground park. You know, look how long that took. It takes time. Look at the Central Gardens, of which early on I was a board member. And I thought, boy, we aren't going to get this off the ground. And you keep chugging away and chugging away. You think, well, how many people are you going to get to come to see pretty posies? A lady asked me that. You know, and now you ought to see the number of people that come, not just from 50 miles away or 100 miles away, but miles and miles away, they will come. So if this is done right, and this Bob Brace, is that how you pronounce the last name?
Right.
Who we, you know, interviewed, whatever it was, a week or two ago, that guy is bright. He is really smart, and he's going to call a spade a spade. And that's what I want to hear. The other group, they were pretty and did nice things and what they did in foreign countries and so on. That's all well and good. But this guy will tell us maybe what we want to hear and what we don't want to hear. And that's the kind of person I truly do appreciate. And it's for the children and their parents, and hopefully for the gray-haired parents that go with them. It's a learning exercise, as well as, while they're here, we will have that immersive center going, right, Chelsea? We will have that up and rolling, and that's another area of this town that some people say, well, what else is there in this town? I think there's a lot. We don't even talk about the clean lake that we've put $25 million over the last 20 to 25 years in. So I think this is just another significant part of our wonderful community, and I give you guys a lot of credit for hanging in there. It ain't been easy, and you're doing a very good job. So, yes, let's move forward, council. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Lorena. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve selection of Consult Econ, and that's the Bob Brace that I and Scott referred to and Lorena did, as consultant for feasibility study and funding participation in the amount not to exceed $15,000 by the Clear Lake City Council. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Creighton, seconded by Dana, that we approve the selection of Consult Econ as the consultant for the Children's Museum. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say.
No.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you all. Thank you, Lorena. Chief, you're up.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of quick things for you. If you have not seen online or some of our social media posts, this is the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. So we've got some really good dispatchers sitting on the other side of the wall over here that work 24/7, 365. They answer the 911 admin lines. Somebody walks in the front door there, they speak with them, and then they're the other voice on the side of our radios for the police, fire, EMS, and then also work with Public Works there too. So we just want to take a moment to recognize them for the work that they do at the podium tonight.
Recognize Mrs. Colby, too.
Yep, and she is actually on her way home from work right now from Minnesota.
She might beat us
works
all.
up there.
Let's
Let's hope not.
That's right.
Her drive's 60 times longer than mine, so I should be her home. Did a couple things earlier this month. We had 6 different dispatcher attendants at APCO and NENA conferences down in Des Moines. This is related to Telecommunicator Week. They host a conference every year that week, and it's a 2-day training for them to go through. So they got some firsthand experience and up-to-date technologies, some philosophies and application of what they're doing on their job in the radio and answer 911 calls and other areas of their field there too. So we had 6 of them be able to go down to the training this last week. And then starting on probably Friday, you'll start seeing a little bit of change to our patrol cars. So we've taken a look at some of the things that have gone on in our nation, what we can do. And not a lot of people are aware, but back in 2022, the National Suicide Hotline changed their number from an 800 number to just a 988, very similar to 911. So starting Friday, you'll start seeing that on the back of the patrol cars. We'll have that 988 number on there. So it's a suicide and crisis lifeline to try and publicize that a little bit as a resource for those that are in crisis, to where they may be able to get in touch with a social worker or a mental health worker there to get some extra resources when law enforcement's not needed to. So we're going to put that on the back of the cars there. And then the last thing I have for you is on the 17th, which is Wednesday coming up, Lieutenant Goody and Detective O'Keefe will be down in Des Moines at the Build My Future event at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. So they will be taking a patrol car down. They're going to take some game stuff to do, and it's an outreach program we're going to do. They'll reach some 5,000 students from the state of Iowa. They're going to travel from all across the state to the fairgrounds to learn about professions that they can get into when they graduate high school too. So we thought that was an important event for us to be involved in. There's going to be a few law enforcement agencies from across the state that'll have booths there, but we'll be one of them too. So that's something we're trying to do to outreach a little bit there and kind of get our names out there and make some connections with younger kids throughout the community. And I know there's a couple bus loads from the high school going down there from Clear Lake, and so they'll meet them down there, and be kids from all over the state down there for the day too. So they'll be at the fairgrounds from 7 to 3 on the 17th. That's all I got for you. Let's get any questions.
Good deal for kids, that really is, young people.
Yeah. I mean, 5,000 kids, you're not going to have that outreach anyplace else other than going down an event like that too. So
That's neat.
yeah, we thought it was important.
Yeah. Any questions, comments? Thanks, Chief. Public Works Director, Jeremy. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The update I got tonight is what everybody's probably interested in is the railroad. So we have finally come to some agreements and gotten a plan together for the railroad restoration on there on North 8th Street. The plan will be to, with your go-ahead, would be to close that intersection off like we did when the initial work happened, starting Monday morning, the 22nd at 7 a.m. We have a contractor that'll come in and replace the concrete. We're actually going to do some more removals to make that transition better. He believes he can get it done hopefully in a day, removed and replaced all in one day. Then we have to do some, we're looking at probably a 48-hour cure based on talking with Heartland, who then needs to come in and do a 2-foot asphalt buffer between our concrete and the railroad's portion. They require that as part of their standards. And then once that's rolled, we'll be able to open it. So obviously, weather pending, it could be a 3 to 4 day closure. Hopefully Thursday afternoon, if not Friday morning, would be what we're looking at. We will coordinate the traffic control, and then the railroad will be providing a flagger to be on site while all that work is being done. Obviously, everything kind of has to go right with removals and whatnot to get all that replaced. Also, as part of this, they did some removals in the sidewalk area. We discussed, me and Matt, as part of it is to remove a little bit more sidewalk and then make that portion actually ADA compliant, similar to Buddy Holly. So what they had removed, we had to get another like 4 or 5 feet back to put the detectable warnings in to make it actual compliant with a railroad crossing. So considering it was already removed, moving 4 more feet each way and putting the detectable warnings in seemed like a no-brainer. So that will be taken care of as part of that as well. Like I said, as long as weather is favorable with the guys starting Monday morning, it should be a very busy week, but that whole section there from Highway 18 to, was that 9th Avenue? 9th Avenue would be closed off. So, so that's my update. So hopefully everything goes smooth. Any questions on that?
Thanks, Jeremy. This has been a long haul. Thanks for dealing with all that.
I think the asphalt, Heartland was the big kind of deal there, not their fault, but their plant hadn't opened up until I think they're opening up this week, getting it up and running. So with the requirement of that asphalt, we're just sitting and waiting. So yeah. Any other questions?
Jeremy, the water main break on Main there in front of Wilcox.
Yeah.
I was out there watching the other day as they were digging it up, and I was amazed at how not so thick the concrete is right there. It seemed like in a couple areas it was only like 3.5 inches.
Yeah.
It went to 4 or 5, but I was surprised. I figured that'd be 6, 8 inches thick.
I'm guessing it was supposed to be 6 inches. I'd have to look back at the plans. What I did notice when I was down there is when we go to replace it, we're going to have to take out a couple more panels because of the amount of undermining and the actual amount of water that was coming up. There's a storm sewer intake right there as well. So there's probably a little bit of a void around that. So we want to remove those panels that go out to the middle of the road to repack that, reset that. Probably have to reset that manhole lid as well. But I thought it looked normal, but there was some spots where I think it sheared off when they cut it and then broke it. So it could have been a little
Maybe
deceiving
that's what I
too.
was seeing, yeah.
Yeah. That water main is, I know they've had some issues with it in the past when the bank and just some stuff. So we'll probably wait another week before we look at pouring that back at least. The depth of it and the amount of rock and stuff that goes in there for compaction, or just kind of get some traffic on it and then really work it and pack it again. So hopefully maybe next week we'll check it out, and otherwise then we have large items, so but we'll keep an eye on it, make sure it's drivable. So
Well, I'm glad you survived this railroad somewhat debacle because the social media posts have been pretty crazy. I mean, we're all experiencing it, but you just sort of deal with it and drive over it and live with it, but Yeah,
I don't got
people are
social
excited.
media, so I don't
That's a
see
good
it,
thing.
which is
That's good for you.
But the screenshot I saw, I don't know who they were talking about, because whoever Jeremy Kornberg with is a C-O-R-N isn't me, so.
That's not you.
That's
I just
That's
ignored
good. That's good.
It will be
A
fixed.
lot more traffic on 106 with their bridge closed over there. And that'll be that,
I've talked to the county foreman, and he said he's received probably a lot more complaints than I probably received at the railroad even, so.
yeah.
So I
It's
guess feel
heavy in
lucky.
the morning, yeah.
All right.
Do you have an estimated completion date for the restrooms out at the ORC?
Yeah, they have, trying to think. So they are setting toilets and sinks and stuff like that, the parks crew. So as they, I mean, they're working, obviously they got all the other parks to get opened up too last week, so they kind of took a break on those and went to the parks that are already ready, up and running. So I know they got the water about ready to turn on. Once they get the fixtures all set, it would be, the bathrooms would be operational. We got to still pour a 6-foot sidewalk around the outside of there, so I'd like to get that done hopefully before they open. That way we don't have to deal with that. This rain this week's kind of put a hampering on that, but hopefully in the next week or so we'll be able to get them opened up. But it'd be real close. I would think in the next couple of weeks we'll be ready to go.
Awesome, thank you.
So great facility. It looks great.
Thanks,
So,
thanks for your donation.
yeah, well, yeah, we'll once we get those opened up, I'll have a couple people from the club come in and we'll present a check or something, do something like that for you guys. So yeah, no, we I guess as a soccer president, appreciate everything that's going on out there. So everybody at the club's very excited. If you've been out there for any of our stuff, we had record numbers again this year. So great program, and glad to work with the city on that. So.
I was just going to add, what do you mean we don't have your check yet? Aaron? What?
Coming.
Just the big check for the presentation, the rest of it's probably there.
Sure. So, all right.
Good work, and your department, good work,
Yeah, thank you.
all the time. Great bunch, yeah. Under Mayor's report, thanks, Bennett, for taking 1, 2, 3 meetings and 2 special meetings, and a couple of those I was able to see 1,600 miles away. The first one, that was, I couldn't get to see that until later. Really upset my whole routine down there. Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mayor.
Yeah, thank
Welcome.
you.
We're glad to have you back, though.
Thank you. Chad? North Iowa Economic Development, here we go.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I know it's late, so I'll try to go quick. It's funny, we got a message from the governor's office this past week asking us to help set up a visit for them this summer, and just asking for some good times or potential opportunities, things to visit. And I was trying to go through, make a list. I'm like, man, we've got a lot going on that we could show off, and kind of circled around with Scott and Stacy and folks in Mason City. And what we're kind of leaning towards is focusing on the Destination Iowa projects with the bike park and the surf district, but also seeing if we can sprinkle some other things in while we get her. So we'll keep you posted on that front. I don't have any dates or anything lined up yet, but we got a lot to show off. We got a lot to be proud of. I was hoping to be able to talk publicly about a distribution facility project we're going to be announcing very shortly. I didn't get the go-ahead yet, but probably by tomorrow we'll have a press release going out about a new distribution facility going in Mason City, a 50,000 square foot last mile facility. People will be excited to hear about it, I think. So that'll be a very good project. We also have a site visit scheduled for next week with an IEDA project that we've been working on for a biosciences company that'll be looking at a couple of sites here in North Iowa. So looking forward to that. You guys already are well aware we've got a lot of groundbreakings that have happened in the last couple of weeks or are happening soon. Obviously, Surf District on Wednesday. Next week, the bike park in Mason City for their Destination Iowa project will be breaking ground. The Emerald Edge projects, we got Delaware Avenue Apartments in Mason City. The Chick-fil-A is up and running, and a lot of piles getting moved for that one. So just everywhere you go, we're seeing construction and exciting things happening. So appreciate all the work again. Our leaders in the community are keeping us all busy with a lot of good activity, and as seen in the budget and other things happening, it's because of good leadership from you guys and those in this community. We also helped Mason City High School with their Career Day a week ago. They were in, I just bring that up, we had students over at Renovo for about an hour and a half last week. It was really cool to show off a unique facility like that. Pritchard's also hosted a group. So just got the students out and about, seeing businesses in North Iowa. Again, very cool opportunity. Corridor is going through our annual investor campaign right now, and pleased to announce that Mercy One is our flagship investor this year, kind of spearheading the and taking charge of that event for us as we work with our private investors. That typically runs through June. Of course, we accept money anytime people want to give it throughout the year, but this is kind of our intensive campaign period. Tim Putnam, formerly with the Papa John Center, helping us with that effort again this year. So really appreciate all of our businesses that support what we do, and obviously the cities and county for their support as well. On that note, we'll have our investor forum coming up May 24th at 7:30 a.m. We're actually going to try to show off the new airport terminal, so just want to get that on people's calendars. Should be really cool to get people in there and show off what's happening in that. Obviously important to the economic development of our communities. Also, our annual meeting is scheduled for June 20th at the new Legacy Golf Course Pavilion, I believe they call that. That'll be 11:30 to 1 o'clock. We'll have Emily Pritchard from the Pritchard family, but she's the one that got away. She actually started a company called The Socialites, marketing and social media company that's really done some cool things, and I'm excited to have her come in and talk to our group and talk about how marketing our communities, our businesses, how the business community can be involved in selling the community is going to be really exciting. I think she'll do a great job. Of course, hopefully you saw NIAC announce their new president, Joel Pedersen. I had the privilege of being part of that initial process and really excited about him. I think he'll do a great job. Really dynamic individual, and I think he'll be great for the community. So looking forward to helping to bring him on board and get ingrained into the community. And I'll stop there because you guys have heard enough for one night, but I appreciate everything.
Thank you. Thanks. Mr. Flory.
Just real quick, Chad covered those two groundbreakings, so I'm going to skip to the art studios. We did complete the interviews with 3 art studios for the sculpture project in the Surf District, so very impressed, obviously, all 3, and one is definitely in the lead at this point, so I'll be back later with more information on that, but just give you a heads up on that one. And then I just wanted to thank the mayor and Beth Ann Bennett for all, Chad for all coming down for the CAT presentation that we had in Des Moines on the Music Enrichment and Immersive Center project, and we'll have plenty more to talk about on that at some later time, but just want to thank everybody for their time and helping advance that project application.
Questions for Scott? Thank you. Jacob?
Okay, just a real quick update here on the Clear Project Coordinator. As Mayor said, we invested a lot of money into the lake over the years, and so it's a very key position within the city. So we did restructure that to a part-time position and opened it up for applicants through April 4th. We got some good applicants in, and we'll be conducting interviews here on Friday and go from there. But just glad to see some good applicants, and I'm excited for conducting the interviews for that.
I'm glad we have applicants.
Yep. Yeah, in today's day of world, you never know what you're going to get.
Glad, Mayor. I agree with you. I wasn't optimistic at the beginning, but we definitely have some people that are gonna work out, I think. So good.
Thanks, Jacob. Anything else, council? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.